in my 34 years, Patrick, I've seen the best of times, and I have certainly seen not necessarily the worst of times, but the challenging times. And so I'm super excited to be here. I can't tell you, how passionate I am about what you're doing. I'm jealous that you're sitting there watching me, evaluating your future in the sports business. So I'm going to teach a lot of things today in a very short period of time. I got to tell you, I wish I was with you. I wish I was on stage, and I wish I felt the energy in the crowd. This is a little different, though it's not that different, because we've all been doing it since March. So let me just share with you a little bit about the company that I work for. I'm really blessed and I'm really privileged. I have a chance to work with a company that's located in Chantilly, Virginia. It's Long and Foster Realtors. Just to give you a sense of our company, we've got 7 lines of business. We have 10,000 real estate professionals, and in the business that I run, there's 500 employees. And one of the things that we talked about today is how do we turn crisis, chaos, and adversity into wins, victories, successes, and achievements. Number one, it doesn't happen easy. So I'm going to teach you a concept right off the bat called chunking. Chunking is taking something that's very robust, very complex, and doing our very best to simplify it by creating 1, 2, 3 words to 5 words to wrap your head around it. So I am going to ask everyone to take a piece of paper out and a pencil or a pen. I hope you take some notes for sure. I hope you take some notes for sure. But from time to time, I'm going to break and say, I want you to write these 3 things down. I want you to write these 5 things down. So before we show a little video that Patrick inspired me with based on a writing I did, I'm going to give you 5 words I want you to write down, and I want you to hold me to the discipline to make sure I touch on all 5 of them in my 40 minutes. Number 1 is attitude. Number 2 is choices. Number 3 is dreams. Number 4 is focus. And number 5 is passion. Patrick asked me, he said, what are the things that we look for when we hire people? So I've got some interview questions. I've got a little bit of storytelling about some adversity. I'm going to tell you about how we attacked coronavirus. I'm going to share with you, not only did we have the opportunity as an organization to lead our company through the COVID-19 pandemic, but recently we just ended 5 weeks of experiencing a cyber attack. And the only thing I would say is only in 2020. But, I think what's so interesting from my perspective as a leader of our company is, I love adversity. I love crisis. I love chaos. Why? Because I get to see who the real performers are. 3 years ago, our company was purchased by a company called Home Services of America, Patrick, and their shareholder is a guy named Warren Buffett. I'm pretty sure everyone on this call knows who Warren Buffett is, Berkshire Hathaway. No, I've never met him. He's never sent me a text, good job, and he certainly probably doesn't even know who I am. But Warren Buffett's got one of the great quotes. I am going to clean it up. And his quote says, when the tide goes out, you get to see what kind of bathing suits everyone is wearing. What Warren says is when the tide goes out, you get to see actually who has a bathing suit on. And what he's saying is when we get the most adverse times is when we learn the very, very most. And so I think there's an adversity video, which is actually an ad that inspired me. I think it was the first week of COVID-19. We're going to try to run it. It's from Cisco, and it says, adversity came to town, show me what you're made of.
Adversity came to town and said, show me what you're made of. So we showed it our people, sourcing and distributing more fresh food than anyone. We showed it our drivers, helping grocers restock their shelves. We showed it how we're donating millions of meals to those in need. We showed it how we've helped thousands of restaurants convert to takeout and pop-up markets. And how we're encouraging all Americans to take out, to give back. Adversity came to town, so we looked it right in the eye. And it won't be us that blinks first.
So I don't know if that gave you some goosebumps, but I got to tell you, I watched that ad. It inspired me. And one of the things that I started doing about 3 years ago, Patrick and attendees, is I started writing. And so I actually do a weekly blog. And this weekly blog is typically on leadership. It's on teamwork. It's on coachability. And one of the things that this opportunity afforded me, again, inspired to be with you today, it afforded me the opportunity. I went and read the last 150 editions of my blog. And I guess what it did is it made me think about the audience. It made me think about you. And, you know, a couple weeks ago, I was thinking about COVID-19. And I sent a note. By the way, I've got 3 children. You know, Patrick asked me, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me throughout the 50 minutes, but I got 3 great children. Now, what I really say is I got 3 children. 2 of them are great at any time. They just swap on who is great. I have a 38-year-old daughter, Lauren. She's fantastic. 11-year-old grandson. My son, Gary Jr., is 29 years old. My son, Sam, will be 28 on Monday. And we come, though none of us are in the sports field like you are looking at, we all love sports. I had the opportunity back in the early 1980s to play football at Bucknell University. I know half of you probably don't know where Bucknell is, but it sits right in the heart of central Pennsylvania. My oldest son played at Furman. I'm actually wearing one of his Furman dry fits today. He was a quarterback there, and my youngest son was a nose guard at Washington and Lee. And so we love sports. My father actually played at University of Pennsylvania in the 1950s. So the Scott family loves sports. And I can tell you that if we weren't doing what we are doing, we would do what you are setting out to do. I did have the good fortune at a very young age. I was a football coach from age 23 to 28, and I was the head JV basketball coach at my high school. When I graduated from college, I got into the real estate business. I listed and sold real estate. Probably never really thinking that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, but maybe I did, and I'll share that with you a little bit too, because I think one of the things, one of the 5 things I talk about is the ability to dream and dream big. And I just got to tell you, dreams come true. I know that for a fact. They come true, but sometimes you got to modify your dream. And sometimes the dream you have at age 23 and the dream you have at age 57 are different dreams. But I got to tell you, they come true. And again, I'm going to chunk for a minute, and I'm going to ask you to write these 3 things down. And these 3 things are the ABCs of success: attitude, belief, and confidence. Guys, it's all right here. I know that. Because what happens is, particularly in times of adversity, we have all kinds of self-talk. There's all kinds of noise out there. And what we have to do, guys, is we've got to wrap our head around the things that we control, right? The things that we control. And I want you to think about the following. You know, control the controllables. And a couple weeks ago, I reached out to my kids, right? And my kids. And what I said to my kids is I said, what have you learned from COVID-19? Because I will tell you, in week number 1, I called back my kids and I said, you guys have to promise me something. You got to promise me that whatever you learned during COVID-19, you write 3 things down and you never, ever let it go. Because what happens is, you know, we get caught in that moment, right? And we make adjustments and we make notes, and then we get on with our life and we forget, and we don't go back and spend a minute in the rear view mirror. And so I reached out to my kids, and I said to my kids and their girlfriends or fiancés, I said, tell me what you learned. And so in one of my writings, I actually created a fictitious book. And the fictitious book is entitled Reflect, Reconcile, and Reload. And think about that. Think about sitting there today assessing job search, intern search in coronavirus in the sports industry, which has absolutely been impacted, right, by attendance. I watched NFL in college the other day and there's nobody there. I've watched the NBA in a bubble and nobody's there. But again, it's about looking at that not as adversity, but it's about what challenge and opportunity comes my way and what can I do different. And so what I did is I created this book, and in it is a chapter that I want you to hang on to, if nothing else, when I get done today at 10 o'clock. And that topic is time is equal. Time is equal. And what I mean by that is every single person on this earth has the exact same time, right? It's not the variable in the Petri dish. We all have 1,440 minutes a day. But what we control is what we do with it. What we control is how we think about it. What we control are the choices we make with the time we have. Right? That's the key. Because time is equal. What's unequal is our choice. What's unequal is our attitude. What's unequal is the belief and confidence in ourselves. Right? I think you got to grab hold of that like this, because I think it's critical. So now I want to talk about, I talked about attitude. I talked about choices. I told Patrick I'm going to end. I've got two great stories about choices, and I'm going to close my remarks today about choices. And I'm going to talk about the choices we have to make in our lives. And what happens is I Googled it, right? What did I do before Google? I don't know what I did before Google. You guys never had before Google, right? So I Googled choices. I Googled decisions made every day. Every one of us has 1,440 minutes, and every one of us makes 3,500 choices a day. 3,500 decisions a day. So what maps out our future? What? It's the choices we make in the finite minutes equal to all with the 35,000 choices we make. That's what makes the difference. And so the question is, what do I look for when Patrick asked me, what do I look for when I look to hire somebody? I want somebody who's passionate, right? I want somebody who gets up and the fire is stoked in their gut. I can feel it. They go after it, right? I think the whole key is getting up every morning and winning that day. Winning the day that you've been given, which is Friday, September 25th. It's not about worrying about yesterday, right? It's about reflecting on yesterday, but it's about winning the day. And let me tell you, Patrick, how many people are on this call? 150? 200? Let's just say 150 are on the call. Let me tell you, you guys made a choice. Not one of you had to be here, other than maybe Patrick, Jeff, Gary, Brandon later. You made a choice. And here's what I believe in my heart. I believe that you're going to be up against other candidates, right? You're going to be up against other candidates, and they didn't make this choice today. You know why? They went out last night. Maybe they had one or two too many. And maybe they didn't get up, and maybe they weren't stoked, and maybe they weren't passionate, and maybe they didn't commit 3 hours of their time to sharpen their saw. You made a choice today. And the choice you have made has inspired me, right? It's inspired me to be better today at my craft. So let me back up to early March. It's kind of interesting. March 4th of 2020, we had our leadership team awards program. By the way, we have 250 offices. We have 250 locations in 7 states in the District of Columbia. We got a big company. Again, we got a big company. And again, another lesson. And I'll wrap this up, but I tell this to my kids all the time. Just remember this. You are the company you keep. You are the company you keep. Don't ever forget that. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? I tell people all the time, there's only one way I got this job. And I'm going to put my job in perspective. I used to be the defensive coordinator of a really good football team. In other words, I was a senior vice president of the Allen Tate Company when I met Jeff. I was a defensive coordinator, had a great gig, all was good. I got offered the head coaching job at Alabama. My job now is like the head coaching job at Alabama. I went to my wife. I told her I want to take the head. She's not a sports person other than watching her kids. And she said, well, go enjoy yourself. She didn't understand what being the head coach at Alabama was. The only reason I got to be the head coach at Alabama is because I worked with great people in the past in our industry who were super well respected. There's nothing more powerful than an expansive, broad network. Jeff talked about our friendship. Our friendship goes back 15 years. We took a 14-year hiatus. And I came across Jeff because I was talking to somebody about buying into a minor league baseball team. And he told me about a guy he knew that had an interest in a minor league hockey team. And he told me this guy's name was Jeff Longo. I said, well, I know Jeff Longo. So I called Jeff Longo. Jeff, what are you up to? Last time I knew Jeff, he was the assistant general manager of the New York Islanders. I figured I was going to call him in my next career and work for him at the New York Islanders. That's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was calling him to prepare myself for my next job because I am passionate about sports like you are. You might ask the question, why didn't I go into it? You know, I grew up in a real estate family. My father owned a real estate firm, and I knew very early on that I wanted to run the best real estate company in America. Again, I talked earlier about shifting our dreams. My original dream was to run the finest real estate company in America. I just thought it was going to be mine and my dad's. And he sold the company and my dream changed. And I had to adjust my thought process. It was adversity in my own way. And I had to wrap my head around what was I going to do in that moment, just like you had to decide. So I go back. March 4th, we have an awards program. We have 500 people. We actually say, guys, we probably shouldn't shake hands, hug, and do what we normally do. We celebrate our success from 2019. Patrick, and guess what? We did what we normally do. And that weekend, do you remember that weekend? That first weekend in March is when the world changed. I told Patrick the other day, the only time in my career where we are all experiencing the same storm. We are all in a different ship, and we're all our unique captain. That is powerful. Everybody in the world has the same storm. Usually it's, the cyber attack was our storm. We weren't sharing that with anybody, and I think our competitors thought they would take advantage of it and try to take advantage of our pain and get some gain on them. Make a long story short, Monday after that Thursday, March 4th, I think it was March 9th, we had 5 awards in our region scheduled, and our company met, and we decided as a team that we were going to put the health, safety, and welfare of our 10,000 agents, 500 employees, and our customers first. Then we chunked. I'm going to overuse chunking. We came out and said 3 things. Number 2, we're going to show our sales professionals and the consumer how they can buy and sell real estate virtually. And then number 3, I told you our company has 7 companies. I'm going to talk to you a little, let me give you a little kind of business 101 on vertical integration and a shared service model. Patrick didn't ask for that in this presentation, but again, it's about understanding how business works. So we have 7 businesses. We got a real estate company. We got a mortgage company. We got a title company. A title company goes to closing. We have insurance. If I want to rent a property, we rent property. If I have a property I want to rent, we property manage it. We have a lead generation. We have an e-business. We create leads. And we put health, safety, and welfare first. We then said, how are we going to virtually compete? And then what we said is, how are we going to integrate the companies we have to make sure that the consumer can get to closing? The next week, we sent our people home. The thing that I am most proud of in our company, we closed our company before any state that we do business in closed. We didn't wait for the governor to tell me what to do. We didn't wait for an executive order, though I will tell you, I read more executive orders from the governors of multiple states, but we didn't wait, right? Adversity came to town and we didn't blink. I didn't want to wait for the governor of Virginia to tell our company what to do. I will tell you right now, our company is still not open to the public. We're still not open to the public. Is that right? Is that wrong? I don't know, but it's our decision. I didn't even have in my notes today about accountability, personal accountability. I should have had that number one.
Gary, can I ask a question?
You can ask any you want.
I'm fired up. I could see the coach in you. You're like leaning in your chair and you're like
My next
that.
life.
Is there a whistle you have laying around about like to wake us up a little bit?
No.
Adversity came to town, right? It seems like attitude's a big part of what you can control, but like specific actionable items, like if there's a student in this conference that is going through the most adversity they've ever gone through before, what is one actionable thing that they could do today to start to work their way out of that?
So I'm a big guy on morning routine.
Okay.
And it's in my notes from today. You know, I think you got to wake up. I get up early. And I think you got to set aside time for you to focus on you. Because when we focus on those things that we don't control, it then controls us, right? I'm going to talk about kind of a 3-step way to, get through the adversity. I think the very first thing is create a routine in the morning that, and whether it's reading, whether it's meditating, whether it's exercising, whether if you're spiritual, faith-based, whether it's a devotion, but you got to wake up and you got to really focus on your attitude. Here's the other thing. And again, this is, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. We kind of think hope is a strategy. No. Do I believe in prayer? I believe in prayer. Am I strong in my faith? I'm strong in my faith. But hope is not a strategy. You got to be very, very specific. I guess the comment I would make, Patrick, is intentional. So if I am you and you're out there and you're saying, oh my God, number one, I want you to write these 3 things down. And Patrick and I did not practice this. I want you to write these 3 things down. Number 1, less is more. Number 2, simplify the complicated. And number 3, people first. Just walk down this path with me. I'm not saying do less. I'm saying do fewer things better. If I was in an audience with you, I'd say, how many of you, raise your hand if you have a to-do list? Everybody raise their hand. I say, how many of you have 10 or more things on your to-do list, and you raise your hand? Then I would say, at the end of the day, how many of those things did you check off? And quite frankly, how many of you have your to-do list longer at the end of the day than the beginning of the day? Everybody raise their hand. And then you get at the end of the day, you've had a crazy day, you've been a busy day, and guess what has happened? Your to-do list is longer than when you started. Less is more. And what I mean by that is, and this is a sports analogy that you will appreciate, do fewer things and hit home runs. Don't hit 7 singles. Because I think we have a tendency to want to do too many things. Be all things to all people. Learn to say no. Got to learn to say no. And when I say simplify the complicated, life is complex. The job search is competitive and complicated. And I'm telling you right now, in this world of I want it today, I want it yesterday, instant this, instant that, Instagram, Facebook, this, that, I call it instant chat. I'm like Bill Belichick, right? I don't even know that stuff. And the only reason I went on Facebook was to follow my kids. And the minute they knew I was following them, they don't go on Facebook anymore. They're on Instagram, and I call it quits. Today, it's about people. It's about relationships. Okay? I'm going to give you a time-tested secret. if you remember nothing. I forgot in the beginning, Patrick, to say my goal is for everyone on this call to take 3 things that I say today and make it part of their life. That's all I care. 3 things. I don't want you to do 10, I want you to do 3. I want you to go order personalized note cards with your name on it. And I want you to write notes to people. I want you to go old school on Gary Scott. The more things change, the more things stay the same. But let me tell you, the fundamentals work every single time. Now I'm going to challenge you guys, right? I'm going to challenge you. How many of you, if I gave you my mailing address before I gave you this hint, would send me a note? I'm not even going to guess. I'm going to give you my email address. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. If I'm you, I'm probably a decent guy to get to know, I think, right? Number 1, I'll help you any way I can. Number 2, I know some people, right? We're all about relationships and networking. I have never sat across from Patrick in my life because we've learned how to get closer in a time of social distancing. That's a victory, right? Now, we all, believe me, there's nobody on this call that would rather be in an auditorium, up on stage, looking in your eyes and feeling the energy. Because right now, I'm in my office, in my house, there's not a person here, and I'm trying to pretend there's a crowd. I'm creating crowd noise like they do in the bubble, right? But at the end of the day, I need you to take these personal relationships personally. I'm going to share with you a story. My oldest son, Gary Jr., I wanted him in the real estate business. He didn't want to be in the real estate business. He's a financial advisor. I said to Gary, Gary, make a difference. I said, I want you to make a difference because I want you to send note cards. I will tell you right now, as I go through this town, when I come home to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I go see people pre-COVID-19, and I'd run into somebody at Starbucks, and someone would say, you know what? I ran into your son at an event, and you will never believe what he did. I said, what? He sent me a personal note, and I can't remember the last time. And you know what? The millennials don't do that. I call foul. The red challenge flag just came out. I call foul. That's because no one told them to, right? If you do nothing else from my talk today, I mean, you guys have this great world sitting ahead of you. The opportunities are hard to get, but you just got to stay after it. You got to stay after it.
Gary, if I could apply just real quick, I think it's a good anecdote. Your approach of less is more, simplify the complicated, and then people first. So I think we're all, especially those are professionals or professors, a lot of students reach out to us saying, hey, I need help, right? Most of them just kind of more or less throw their hands up. And they don't really know. They say, I don't know how, I just need help. I don't really know what I want to do or how I'm going to get there. There's one individual, she's reached out to me in the last year. She was connected to me through someone else. So she reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, hey, I see your experience. I talked to this person. They said I should introduce myself to someone like you. So we jumped on a phone call. She does, so she was trying to understand what she could do from a career path. She does 1 phone call a week with a new professional. And every time she has that phone call, she summarizes what she learned from the one previously. And then upon completion of that conversation, she asks, do you have someone else I can talk to? So like, if right now you're going through a lot of adversity and things are super complicated, just do 1 phone call a week and ask for 1 referral. And you can meet 52 people in a year. And then once you've met them, you follow up and say, here's what I learned. Thank you for your time. Like that kind of simplify the communicated people first, less is more. That is a tangible thing that we can come out of this, right? And if you guys want to do that, you should start with Gary. He's going to offer up his cell phone. But like, I think that's what you mean by less is more, simplify the communicated people first. Set a goal for the week. And if you do that 52 times, you've created 52 new contacts.
So I'm going to piggyback off that. Again, Patrick and I are unrehearsed. So I have a book list that if I had time, I was going to share a book list. There's a book called The 12-Week Year. Patrick, it leads to what you're saying. Because what happens is when I look at a year, man, I get all frothy, right? I get, oh my God, 12 months. So what Patrick is saying is so relevant, right? if I, Gary Scott, we have 10,000 agents, right? So how might I stay in touch with 10,000 agents? Yes, when I get done this call, I'll do a video and we'll send it out to 10,000 agents. October 22nd, we'll do a Facebook Live to the consumer public and 20,000 agents. Yes, Monday morning, they receive a blog from me. But again, if I don't have that plan, right, I'm not going to, hope's not a strategy. I'm not going to wake up one day and say, all right, let me write this thing Monday morning and see how it goes, right? I start Wednesday the week before. But Patrick is so right. It's not, but don't say to yourself, oh, I'm going to write 10 notes. I'm going to write one. I'm going to make one phone call a day, right? I'm going to, in our business, we're in the networking prospect, and we always say a third of your communication has to be phone, a third face-to-face, and a third when I was selling, it was mail. Now it's email. Don't forget the telephone either. Don't hide behind your computer. Make it personal, make it unique. Because your question is, the question I have is, how are you going to separate yourself from the pack? That's the key. How are we going to differentiate ourselves? I'm going to tell you. My son will tell you today, he might manage X number of assets. He will say, half of the assets I manage come as a result of personal notes that I wrote. He tells a story where there was a guy, he sent his assistant a personal note saying how nice it was to meet him. That individual ended up selling his business to Gary because Gary sent his assistant a personal note. But to Patrick's point, it's about a discipline, a cadence of discipline. I gave you one book. I'm going to give you another book called 4DX. It's the 4 disciplines of execution. It's about having a goal. We call them WIGs. Imagine what a WIG is. A WIG is a wildly important goal. So think about our company. Our company's giant. We have 3 WIGs. We don't have 20 WIGs. We have 3 WIGs. What are your 3 WIGs? What are your 3 wildly important goals? Right? That's number 1. Number 2 is, what are you going to do? What are your strategies and tactics around getting to those goals, which speaks to what Patrick said. Number 3 is, what is your scorecard? How are you holding yourself accountable? And here goes another huge recommendation. Patrick wants to know, what is tangible? Huge believer in an accountability partner. It's hard to hold yourself accountable. I want everyone on this call to think about someone in their life, roommate, classmate, high school friend, parent. Have a 20-minute call a week. It's very simple. It's a call to review of last week and a preview of next week. And commit to 3 things. I tell this story all the time. Why do personal trainers work? Because we pay them before we go see them. I got an appointment at 5 o'clock with Cliff Russell tomorrow morning. I've already paid for it. And Jeff knows me. I'm pretty disciplined. I will work out by myself. Nothing like setting the appointment with the trainer. This is way before your guys' time, Weight Watchers, before it was an app. You had to weigh in. So you had to go with 20 people and weigh in. Is that not accountability? In our company, we have accountability partners. If
I could also suggest something, I know we're in a social media world, and try to find a personal contact to be an accountability partner, but put it out there on social media, right? Like put it on LinkedIn and say, hey, like I'm going to set a goal for the year. I want to read 12 books a year, or I want to meet 50 people on LinkedIn. Like put it out there. Put yourself out there. Use the tools that you guys are comfortable with, like social media, for a productive purpose, and let the LinkedIn community hold you accountable.
Awesome. It's interesting you bring up LinkedIn. I will tell you that we're never too old to learn. I've never been a huge LinkedIn guy. I got to tell you, that crazy video I did outside our office with the wind blowing, I have reconnected with 92 people that I have fallen out of connection with. And yesterday, I actually called a marketing firm that I want to work with me on helping me use social media to communicate some of the things I'm communicating with you today, right? Patrick brings up a great question, and it's one of the things I want to make sure I cover. I only got 15 more minutes, and that is, put yourself out there. I will share with you a story. My father passed away in 2008. My father and I had a fabulous relationship. Great guy, great mentor. By the way, have mentors. Mentors are critical. I talked earlier about you are the company you keep. So my father, great mentor. And so when my father died, I did the eulogy and I said to myself, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book, the 11 leadership lessons my father taught me. It's 2020. I haven't written the book. But guess what I have? I have all the chapters. And the only reason I started my weekly blog, and here is my promotion. If you email me, you can receive it, right? If you email me at gscott@lnf.com, and here, I'm not selling it. Patrick receives it, and I'll be the first to tell you, some of them are good and some of them aren't very good. I know that, but I have a simple goal. What's my simple goal? One person who gets it benefits. Gary, that's a low bar. Is it a low bar? I don't think it's a low bar. It takes me whatever time it takes me to write it. If one of the 400 people today that receives it has a better day because of it, makes a better decision as a result of it, it's worth it, man. It's worth it. So anyway, I'd love to send you all that, and there's not an infomercial. So I got two things I got to cover in the next 15 minutes. I got to show you a video. Can you tee up my Greg Schiano video? Yep. I don't know how many of you know Greg Schiano, but the title of my weekly blog is Focus. And I have I wrote, this was back in because I was called Friday Focus, and I changed it to Focus. Let's take a look at a video of my good friend, former teammate, and
adversity came to town
Schiano about
and
focus.
said, "Show me what you're made of." So we showed it our people.
That's all right. I chose 2 1-minute videos to break up looking at my face. That's what I did. I'm not a PowerPoint guy, never have been.
1 second here.
So here's what I'm going to do while you're putting that up. So what I did is, the thing about focus is the definition is pretty simple. A point of concentration, a state or condition permitting clear perception and understanding, a center of activity, attraction, or attention. It's about laser focus. I then took focus. I love acronyms. Here you go. Let's play this. I want you to pay close attention to my good friend, Greg Schiano.
One thing, we are going to develop you at Rutgers. We're going to develop you as men. We're going to develop you as football players, right? It's a total experience here that's built on love. Pat mentioned the chop. When we got good and it got exciting here, everybody did this, and I'm not sure everybody knows what this means. As an assistant coach, I sat in a meeting room, and there was a sports psychologist by the name of Kevin Elko. We were 3-3 at the University of Miami, and we thought we might get fired. And that's before the great run occurred there. And we were going up to play Boston College, and he said, "You guys, you're in the middle of the woods, and it's pitch dark and it's cold. And you got 2 choices. You can curl up and die, or in essence get fired, or you can pick up an axe, pick one tree, look at the spot on that tree, and grab that axe as tight as you can and haul off and hit that spot. But it's not going to do much. You got to look at that spot with great focus and great concentration and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And eventually, 400 or 500 strokes later, you're going to start to hear something. Poof. That's when you take a rest, pat yourself on the back, and then pick a new tree and start on that. And pretty soon, that dark forest, a little light starts to show. You keep doing it, Before you know it, you're where you want to be. That's the way it's going to work. And I'm going to make no mistake about it, because I've never done anything in my life, anything other than to be the very best. So when I stood up here 19 years ago and I said Rutgers football will be national champions, I got a lot of laughs, a lot of smirks. A lot of people said, oh, yeah. We got to number 7. We couldn't do it.
Thank you. So who just didn't feel like grabbing an axe and a tree? So again, I'm very lucky. Greg was 2 years behind me at Bucknell. I tell the story. So talk about adversity, right? Let's talk about adversity. Some of you may have played sports in high school, and some of you may have played sports in college. So, when you go to college and play sports, Patrick, everybody that goes there was all conference. Everybody was all state. I don't care if you're going to Bucknell, Alabama, or a Division III school. Everyone was all everything. So, I had some success in high school. I chose to walk on to Bucknell. I call it a little bit recruited. And I never forget this. I'll never forget this. I get there, and the first day I go to the depth chart. I've been told by the guy who recruited me, a gentleman named Rocky Reese, that I'd be a left halfback. I'll never forget August 15th, 1982. There's 6 on the depth chart. My name's not even on the depth chart. I went from all conference in Wilmington, Delaware, to not even on the depth chart. Do you think I felt like quitting? Just if I was do you think of course I felt like quitting. Really? Here's what happened 2 weeks later. The 5 in front of me either got hurt or quit. And in 2 weeks, we have the blue-orange game before the first game. I'm the starting left halfback on the blue and the orange team. And I'll never forget it. I walked off the field, played both ways, thought I wasn't going to do it. I said to the Rock, hey, Rock. He used to let us call him Rocky. I said, the Rock. I said, man, I am so lucky. I'm just so lucky. God, it all fell my way. He said, Scotty, luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Woo! I always say, thanks, Rocky Reese. It's a great lesson. It's a great lesson. So I've got 7 minutes. I think, is that accurate, Mr. Patrick? Because I want to stay on time. So one of the things, and one of the reasons I do not use a PowerPoint, I don't use a PowerPoint, guys, because it doesn't allow me to go off script, right? And I think what happens is, I like to say that I'm good at reading the audience, and a little challenging today when I can only see one, but I like to go where the energy is. I've got a couple quotes I want to read. And then what I want to do is I want to end, I want to end with the 11 chapters that are the book that my father wrote me, that are lessons you can take with you. And then I want to read 2 stories, which will take me right to the end. And then I'm going to finish with a quote. So my first quote is Martin Luther King, one of my favorites. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in the time of challenge and controversy. Amen. Here's the book, the 11 titles of lessons I learned from my father. Number 1, whoever said life was fair? You guys remember as a kid, Mom and Dad, that's just not fair. And my dad used to say, well, son, tell me one person that told you it would be. Now, here's what I believe now, 57 years later. I think life is really fair. I think it's totally fair. I think we get challenges that attack the fairness. We all have the same time is equal. Remember, time is equal. Life is really fair. It's all in the choices we make. Number 2, my favorite. If it was easy, anyone could do it. God, I used to go say, Dad, I called him up, right? That first day of not being on the depth chart. I wanted him to tell me it was okay to quit. I said, son, if it was easy, anyone could do it. What a way to challenge somebody. Number 3, the mirror. Nobody likes to hear this. My kids hated it growing up. They thank me today. Every answer to every question you have is in the mirror. It's about you. It's about self-accountability. Let me tell you the thing that frustrates me the most today as I watch our country and our politics. No one takes responsibility for their own actions. I did this because you did that. I can't say it in front of a group of college students.
No, they're college students. You can say
responsibility. Number 4, won't surprise you, attitude is success. Number 5 is, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. Is that not true? If you're going to do it, do it. Don't just half do it. I was on a call the other day with our team from Philadelphia Center City, and we were talking about how prospecting for new customers. I said, take this to the bank. The minute you think you have done enough, you are only halfway there. I want you to take that one with you, right? The minute you think you've done everything you can, just say, it's at halftime. Because there's always a little bit more. Make one more call, write one more note, send one more text, say, I love you one more time. Number 6, character counts. Number 7, play the hand you're dealt. Number 8, expect the unexpected. One of my good friends is Dave Sanderson. Dave Sanderson was the last man off the Miracle on the Hudson. How about that? You want to read a good book, try Moments Matter. You want to read a good book on attitude, there's a book entitled Attitude by Jay Wright, head basketball coach at Villanova. I have to put a plug in, also a Bucknell grad. We got a couple good coaches out there. Number 9, dream big. I told you I started up. I said dream big. Number 8 was expect the unexpected. If I went out of order, I'll come back. Number 10, enjoy the trip. That was my father's favorite. He'd say, son, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. Because guess what? Guess what sometimes is disappointing? The destination. It's the journey, it's the trip, it's the relationships, it's the highs, the lows, the relationships. That's what makes it who we are. And last and not least, and Jeff will love this, and I call it one speed. One speed is the mantra of the Scott family. One speed to my family is just do it to Nike, is I will to Under Armour. And one speed is simply this: live one speed. And that speed is all you got every day. And the one represents opportunity never ends. Live a life that's significant. Live a life with passion. Be empathetic. Be enthusiastic. And be dedicated to a higher cause. That's what it takes to live one speed. I got shirts. My son laughed. He says, I'm the only guy that has gear with no money. We make no money on one speed, but we got gear, right? But again, it's about, if I had to put chapter 12 to my dad's book, it's have fun. And life can be short. I want you to win today. You guys already won the day because you're ahead of everybody else because you committed to this event. You win the day. I'm going to leave you. Do I have time for my 2 stories?
You do.
You sure?
Yep. You think
No,
I'm
I had it right where I wanted them. That's
think I'm going to
always
close
the
you
way.
down? You got me all fired up. You think I'm going to shut you down right now? Come on.
Exactly. Well, if you might have to, because I don't know if I can find my stories. I had everything organized. You guys are going to have to bear with me. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Want me to fire some interview questions while I look for my 2 great stories on choices.
One was the
Well, I know
fellow
what
in
they are. I just
Chicago.
don't have them committed to memory, unfortunately. Bear with me, squad. It's got to be here. I found it. You ready? 2 stories. Life is all about choices. The first story is about a guy named Butch O'Hare. World War II produced many heroes. One such man was Lieutenant Commander Butch O'Hare. He was a fighter pilot assigned to the USS Lexington in the South Pacific. These two stories are true stories. One day, his entire squadron was sent out on a mission. He was airborne. He looked at his fuel gauge and he realized that the pilot before him had forgotten to top off the fuel tank. He would not have enough fuel to complete the mission and get to his ship. His flight leader told him to return to the carrier immediately. Reluctantly, he dropped out of formation and headed back to the fleet. But as he was returning to the USS Lexington, he saw something that turned his blood cold. A squadron of Japanese bombers was speeding its way toward the American fleet that he had just left. The American fighters were gone on a sortie, and the fleet was all but defenseless. He couldn't reach his squadron and bring it back in time to save the fleet, nor could he warn the fleet of the approaching danger. There was only one thing for Butch O'Hare to do. He must somehow figure out a way to divert the Japanese from the fleet. Putting aside all thoughts on personal safety, he dove into formation of the Japanese planes, wing-mounted 50 calibers blazing as he charged in. Attacking one enemy plane after another, Butch weaved in and out of the now broken formation and fired at as many planes as possible until his ammunition was spent. Undaunted, he continued the assault. He dove at the planes, trying to at least clip off a wing or a tail, in hopes of damaging as many enemy planes as possible and rendering them unfit to fly. He was desperate to do anything he could to keep them from reaching his team, the American ships. Finally, the exacerbated Japanese squadron took off in another direction. Deeply relieved, Butch and his tattered fighter limped back to the carrier. Upon arrival, he reported in and relayed the event upon his return. The film from the camera mounted on his plane told the tale. It showed the extent of Butch O'Hare's daring attempts to protect the fleet. He had destroyed 5 enemy Navy bombers February 20, 1942. And for that action, he became the Navy's first ace of World War II and the first Navy aviator ever to win the Congressional Medal of Honor. A year later, he was killed in aerial combat at age 29. His hometown would not allow the memory of that action to die, and today, at Chicago O'Hare Airport, is a tribute to Butch O'Hare. So the next time you're at O'Hare Airport, if you get there, once we start flying again, visit the memorial and statue and his Medal of Honor. It's located between terminals 1 and 2. Pretty powerful. Story number 2, Easy Eddie. Some years earlier, there was a man in Chicago called Easy Eddie. At that time, Al Capone, who many of you have heard, virtually owned the city. Capone wasn't famous for anything heroic. His exploits were anything but praiseworthy. He was, however, notorious for enmeshing the city of Chicago in everything from bootleg booze and prostitution to murder. Easy Eddie was Al Capone's lawyer, and for a good reason, because he was the best. In fact, his skill at legal maneuvering kept Big Al Capone out of jail for a long, long time. Al Capone showed his appreciation, and he paid him very, very well. Not only was money big, but Eddie also got special dividends. For instance, Eddie and his family occupied a fenced-in mansion that with live-in help and all the conveniences of the day back in the 1940s. The estate was so large that it filled an entire city block of Chicago. Yes, Eddie lived the high life of the Chicago mob and gave little consideration to the atrocity that went on around him. Eddie did have one soft spot, however. He had a son that he loved dearly. Eddie saw it that his son had everything. He had the best clothes, he had the best cars, he had the best education. Nothing withheld price was no object. And despite his involvement in organized crime, Eddie even tried to teach him right from wrong. Yes, Eddie even tried to teach his son to rise above his own sordid behavior. He wanted him to be a better man than he was. One day, yet with all of his wealth and influence, there were 2 things that Easy Eddie could not pass on to his son. 2 things that Eddie sacrificed to the Capone mob that he could not pass on, and that is a good name and a good example. It's the mentor we talked about. One day, Easy Eddie had a difficult decision to make. Offering his son a good name became far more important than the riches he could lavish on himself. He had to rectify all the wrong he had done. He would go to the authorities and tell the truth about Al Capone. He would try to clean up his tarnished name and give his son some semblance of integrity. To do this, he had to testify against the mob, and he knew that would cost him great. But more than anything, Eddie again wanted to be that example to his son. He wanted to do the best to make restitution. So he testified, and within 1 year, to nobody's doubt, Easy Eddie's life ended in a blaze of gunfire on a lonely Chicago street. He had given his son the greatest gift he had to offer at the greatest price he would ever have to pay. So the question is, what do these two stories have in common? Butch O'Hare is Easy Eddie's son. How about that? It's about choices. I'll leave you with one final quote, and it's one that I start my day with and I end my day with. And it's one that I share with our company frequently. If you have a family that loves you, if you have a few good friends, if you have a roof over your head and food on your table, you're richer than you think. Today has been my honor and privilege to be with you, and I apologize I went over. And I want to thank Patrick and Jeff and Sam and Vince. I see Jed waiting, and Jed, I owe you an apology. You guys have a great day. Let me know how I can help, and I'm going to sign off and just say thank you. And the pleasure has been mine. Thank you.
Since I'm the only person that can clap and you can hear it,
It's all right.
Gary,
All good.
thank you very much. Clearly, you're very passionate, and as you wrote, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So thanks for overdoing your passion and sharing those stories with us and all of the amazing takeaways. A number of the students in the chat were asking about some of your 11 points, so they're going to reach out to you and ask those question yourself, which is good. I included your email address in the chat as well. I guess if I could kind of just focus on two salient points as a member of the audience. One, as evidenced by Gary's presentation, reading, right? How many times did he reference books? And every speaker I talk to today, like people that I know that are successful, they're not in school anymore, but they continue to read. That's how you can continue to add knowledge and make yourself better. So if there's one actionable item you want to take, he talked about a morning routine, start reading books. Okay. And then I think to Gary's point too, perspective, everyone has a lot going on right now, and there's a lot of reasons to feel like, woe is me. But if you know that life is about pushing through adversity, you should be lucky that you're starting your career during adverse circumstances and grateful for that opportunity, because now 10, 20 years down the line, it's going to be easy for you because you've already done it. You've already built the discipline, built the systems, figure out a way through adversity early on in your career, where someone, 10, 15 years older hasn't had to do that before. So this isn't a woe is you. This is, you should be grateful for the opportunity, I think. And that's the way to approach it. What do you think about that, Gary?
I'm going to add one thing. So I agree. 100%. I think what I would encourage you to do is create your crisis, chaos, adversity playbook from the learnings of COVID-19. As Patrick said, take that playbook with you, because you will have the thrill of victory. You'll have the agony of defeat. You'll have highs, you'll have lows, you'll have wins, you'll have losses. And all of that makes us who we are, and have that playbook. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a lot of my lists, my chunking. I'm going to put it all together, and I'm going to send it all. First of all, if you email me, I will send it to you, but I'm going to send it all to Patrick so he can send out a little more comprehensive package. There's some good thoughts in there, and all my thoughts came from other people. I'm simply the aggregator of great stuff from great people. So I appreciate the opportunity, and great advice from Patrick for sure.
Thank you, Gary. All right.